Hey there, Jon Chorba here from ReallyEasyGuitarLessons.com, and in this video lesson, I want to show you 3 really easy tips to take your guitar chords from sounding like this to sounding like this. So there are 3 possible reasons why your chords don't sound good. Number 1 is you could be not using enough pressure on your fretted notes. So to listen for that, I'm going to just take the 3rd fret of the E string, and I'm going to just start by putting my 2nd finger on it, and I'm going to just touch it, not adding any pressure. I'm going to keep picking the string. And I'm going to start slowly adding pressure. So this could be an issue right here. If you hear this sound, that could be the clue that you're just not pressing hard enough. Because you see, as soon as I add more pressure, that buzziness went from buzzy to a clean sounding note, which is what we want. Okay, so pressure could be one of the issues. The other one is your finger that you're fretting might be on the fret wire. So if you're actually on the fret wire, all right, ooh, that sounded really good. All right, it sounds like there's definition to the note, but it sounds a little out of tune, and it sounds buzzy and not good. Okay, so don't be on the fret wire and use adequate pressure. But really, the 3rd reason is probably what is tripping you up from having cleaner chords, and that is your other fingers are getting in the way. So in the instance of, say, like a D chord, it's very common on a D that the 3rd finger is touching that high E string, and it completely negates what the 2nd finger on the high E string is doing. So I have that note being clean, but if my finger is bent back that way and it's touching the high E string, you're gonna get that muted sound. So if you hear a completely dead, dampened, muted sound, that is usually the tell that one of your other fingers is touching that string, it's getting in the way, and that's the source of your problems. All right, I'm gonna show you 5 ways to fix that problem. 1 would be adjust some portion of your actual playing technique. The first one to look at would be changing what leg you hold the guitar on. I hold the guitar on my right leg like 90% of the time. Most comfortable, I'm not a classical guitar player or teacher, so I don't really care which leg you hold the guitar on, but know that you could change your leg, and by changing your leg, you change your placement, and that might actually make it easier, okay? I've taught a lot of guys over the years that are on the bigger side, they got big old bellies. No judgment, I'm no skinny marink myself. I've got a belly on me too, but I've taught some guys that had some big bellies, and it's very hard for them to hold the guitar up close to their body. It starts to drift away, and it puts their hand into a weird spot, okay? So if you're having an issue with chords, I would recommend first take the guitar and put it on the inside of your left leg. You might want to use a strap to lock the guitar out so that as it hits your leg, you're not having to squeeze your legs together to hold anything. But by putting it over here, it completely changes the way your fretting hand, approaches the neck. So that could be one of the things that you try. It's not for everybody, but it's something to test out. So first thing to try would be switching what leg you have that you're holding the guitar on. So another thing that you could adjust with the open position chords is where your thumb is. When I play them, my thumb is over the top, right? This is kind of how I learned and what feels the most comfortable to me. But when students try to do this, what ends up happening is that their fingers bend backwards, okay? So you can take your thumb and move it more towards the middle of the neck, and that might make it easier to get on the tips of your fingers, all right? Now just watch out when you do this. If your wrist starts doing something like that, that's no good. Nobody plays guitar like that. You wanna, you can move your wrist out a little bit, but once it starts getting into weird territory, watch out for that. You want to kind of have your elbow to be close into your body, right? But play around with where your thumb is, because that might unlock, the configuration to get those fingers out of the way of the adjacent strings. second tip for cleaning up your chords is to do an exercise that I call crouching tiger, hidden dragon, right? The big problem with, unclean open chords is with the dip joint in your finger. So this knuckle, this joint right here, right before your fingernail, this is called the dip joint, all right? And for a lot of students, especially older ones that might have a little bit of arthritis, it's a hard time, they have a hard time getting a proper bend in that joint. Because if your fingers are completely flat, right, they're gonna touch the strings and it's just gonna be not good, okay? So the exercise that I recommend you can do this away from the guitar, just do it throughout the day, is if you've ever seen an old kung fu movie where they do this kind of striking when they fight. I don't know how effective that would be in real life, probably not at all, but they do it in the Bruce Lee movies. And all you do is you just take your fingertips and you let them touch your finger pads like that. Let me get on this camera here. So your hand should look like that, okay, where the fingertips are touching your knuckle pad, and you just squeeze, and you get this super bend in your dip joint, right? Just hold that for a few seconds and release, and then hold that a few seconds and release. You're just conditioning your fingers to bend at that knuckle, because sometimes they just don't want to move, and we got to get them to move, all right? So dip joint exercise called crouching tiger, hidden dragon, very valuable. I've helped a lot of students with just doing this, facilitating that dip joint bend really, really helps a lot. All right, the third tip I have for making your chords cleaner isn't fun, but it is super effective. A few years ago, I had an idea of teaching myself how to play left-handed, right? So I'm a right-handed guy. I bought a left-handed guitar, and I started teaching myself a little bit. And one of the first things I noticed was no matter how I put my hand, I couldn't get these chords to sound clean. I felt like a lot of my students who were like, I'm doing everything I possibly can. I'm adjusting my thumb, I'm adjusting my wrist. I put it on this leg, I put it on that leg. I'm doing the crouching tiger, hidden dragon, and I'm still getting cruddy sounding chords. The culprit that I had, that you might have, is you just might have way too much flesh on the tips of your fingers. So I would recommend go into your garage, get a saw, and just cut off the flesh of the tip of your finger. I'm kidding. Don't do that. Do not do that. But I do have an exercise that is a little slightly less torturous than that, but it's really beneficial and help grinding down the tips of your fingers, developing calluses to get that skin out of the way so it stops this muting. This is what I did. So, okay, the exercise, I call it the Spanish Inquisition exercise because it doesn't feel that great. And here's what you do. Whatever finger is getting in the way, let's say you're playing a D chord and your ring finger is always touching that high E string. No matter how much you curl it and bend it, it's still getting in the way, okay? But you find the part of your finger that touches the string, okay? And you put that part of your finger on the high E string. Put it on the high E string, say at the first fret, third fret, I don't really care what fret you put it on, but you put that part of your finger, it has to be the part that is getting in the way, you press down hard into the string, hold the pressure, and slide that sucker up and down the frets. It's not gonna feel good at all. But after a few seconds, right, stop, don't really hurt yourself. But after a few seconds and after a few attempts of that, you're gonna push that skin in enough and develop a nice little callus, and that's gonna help you get over the hump of getting that finger out of the way and making your chords cleaner. So this was what I was doing. I was playing left-handed, I was trying to do a chord little thing, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get, I couldn't get it to sound right. And if you look at the difference between the flesh on my middle finger, on my fretting hand versus my non-fretting hand, look how much more plumpness and juiciness is in the non one, right? Like that was the problem I had, is there was too much skin and it was getting in the way. And so you just need to grind those suckers down a little bit, and that can make all the difference in the world. The fourth tip I have is how you practice memorizing the chord and developing the muscle memory of the chord. I recommend you do what I call the press and release technique. So let's say you're learning a G chord, right? You form the chord, and then you check the chord for accuracy. All right, if you hear muting, All right, make adjustments so that the chord sounds clean. And then once it is clean, what you do is you press as hard as you can into the strings, hold the pressure for 10 seconds. Then you are going to release the pressure. You're going to take your fingers off of the strings, but you're going to hold the shape of that chord, and you're just going to hover over the strings as close as you can while you hold that shape. And you're going to do that for 10 seconds. And then you just simply repeat that process. Form the chord. Check it for accuracy, so that sounds bad, so you'd make your adjustments. Press and hold for 10 seconds. Release and hover for 10 seconds. And repeat that process. That just really helps form the shape that you need your hand to make and cements the muscle memory into your fingers. And the last tip that I have for making your chord sound better is make sure you're strumming the right strings when you're playing the chord. Oftentimes I will see beginner students, they'll be playing a D chord, but they play it like that. They're incorporating the E and the A string into the chord. Those two notes, those two strings are not in the chord. So don't play them, okay? If you're playing the D chord like that, it sounds really ridiculous, all right? So make sure that when you're playing the chord that you're playing the proper amount of strings. Same thing with a C chord. A C chord is from the A string down. Don't play the low E. An A chord, it's from the A string down. Don't play the low E. It makes it sound wonky. If you need chord diagrams for open position chords, for bar chords, for triads, if you want some scale diagrams, head over to my website, realllyeasyguitarlessons.com. Get your free copy of my ebook, every chord, scale, and arpeggio diagram that you will ever need. It's over 100 pages. It's totally free. Go check it out. So that's it for this video lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. If you have any suggestions for videos that I can do for the channel, leave your suggestions in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button to get more videos like this. If you are a beginner or intermediate guitar player and you are totally lost, confused, overwhelmed, not sure what you should be working on, head over to realllyeasyguitarlessons.com/quiz where you can take my free guitar practicing assessment. I'll ask you a few short questions, and then based off of your answers, I will tell you what your top practicing priorities are. You could find that at realllyeasyguitarlessons.com/quiz. It's totally free. Results are delivered instantly. Again, realllyeasyguitarlessons.com/quiz. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.